Nation. We're back.
All right, welcome back to another episode of Fire the Cannon. I'm Rocky.
And I'm Megan, and we are Fire the Cannon. All right, hey, look at that. We got our boom going on. Speaking of the boom.
Yeah, we got the boom. Yeah, we'll talk about it. That boom was from Georgia on Saturday.
Yeah, that's true. That's
Georgia
true.
had
But
the boom on Saturday, and that's how it goes sometimes.
You win some, you lost some, you lose some, and Texas lost this one. That is for sure. It was
Texas
a pretty
has
big
won
loss.
a lot, and then one loss is a heartbreaker. And we'll talk about it. The atmosphere, the buildup, everything that went into preparing for this game, and a first half that was just what? We'll talk about it.
Yeah. So again, we'll do a quick recap of Georgia. Again, we appreciate y'all being here. As always, please like and subscribe. Again, we are at Fire the Cannon Podcast on YouTube, and on Insta and X, we are Fire the Cannon and the number 1. Again, we appreciate y'all being here. Always love hearing from everybody. And again, just a quick program note before we get started. We will be doing our live show. Normally, we air live from 3 to 5 Central on Thursdays, but we're actually going to push that back to Friday. We will post about the new live time, as I will be driving. Rocky, you will be in flying. You'll be midair our normal show time. So we'll postpone that a little bit. That way everybody can join us and get their comments in as we are talking about looking forward to Vandy. But before that,
we'll be traveling to Nashville. Right.
That's right. But before that, we do need to do a postmortem. We do need to talk about what the heck happened in Austin, Texas. High expectations for sure. Is Texas SEC ready? A lot of questions after this game. A lot of things to be worked on. Absolutely. So, Rocky, let's jump into it. Let's talk about it. Started off with an amazing atmosphere. You can see behind you, you've got that awesome picture of the new drone show.
Yes, this is the drone, the part where the cannon kind of went poof with drone lights. It was pretty cute. So this is my new Fire the Cannon just for today because my background is different today. But yeah, that's pretty cute. I posted the video. The 1.5 minute drone show was amazing. Yep.
It was great. Well, and a cool thing that I didn't realize that I sit in the north end zone, and something I didn't realize that happened this show was they actually had drones above the north end zone and on the east side too. So didn't matter where you were sitting. That's been a common complaint, right? Certain people couldn't see the drone show no matter where you put it. So the solution is double the drone show. So I thought that was pretty cool. Not many places can do that, but we're Texas. We got that drone money. So
it was pretty amazing. Yeah.
It was a very cool show. Again, atmosphere was hopping. People were ready. Longhorns were lit. It was amazing. We set a new attendance record in DKR of 105,215. So pretty impressive.
100,000 of them were celebrities and Longhorn legends.
That is absolutely true. But yeah, this was certainly a popular game. Certainly a game that a lot of people have been looking forward to. I know I've had this game circled on my calendar for over a year. Texas launching into the SEC. This was Texas's first really big test here, and pretty big. A lot of people were excited about this. This is actually the most watched game of the year so far. So the Georgia-Texas game averaged 12.9 million viewers on ABC per Sports Media Watch. The game peaked at 14.1 million. So this is the most watched game of the season so far. The largest crowd on an ESPN telecast since 2016, Ohio State, Michigan. So highly anticipated game. We knew a lot of recruits were there. I think the final number, Rocky, you had that, didn't you? Was it over 100?
There were over 100 recruits there. And, I left thinking, oh, what an opportunity to put on a show for the recruits and show that Texas is the number 1 team in the country. And they fell short. And so I was worried that was going to really negatively impact recruits. But a lot of the feedback from a lot of the recruits was, wow, what a show. Wow, what a crowd. Wow, what an atmosphere. From morning to night, DKR and the Texas Longhorn Nation put on a show. And some of them were even mentioned that they were impressed by the fans getting rowdy. And we'll talk about the water bottle throwing shit show. We'll talk about that. But they were impressed with the atmosphere and the product still on the field and the fight from the team, that the team didn't quit. But there were so many people on hand. Unfortunately, like, politics aside, Ted Cruz is a curse for your favorite sports team. And when we were down big, I'm like, fuck, is Ted Cruz here? And apparently he yeah, but so that's always a going joke about don't want him at your sporting event.
For sure. I think there was actually a petition to ban him from sporting events in the state of Texas
well,
recently.
we didn't have enough people sign it, I guess, because he was there. And oh well, but all the celebrities, I mean, just Longhorn legends, the Olympians. They brought out the Olympians from the Paris Olympics. Longhorn legends, Longhorns who had medals in the Olympics. They had let me see. We have celebrities like your two favorite.
Yes.
Nate Boyer and Glenn Powell, the massive news. He's Matthew McConaughey 2.0, right? Glenn Powell. Everyone loves him. He's so handsome.
The millennial McConaughey, I think, is the nickname there.
Is that what he is? Millennial McConaughey?
Yeah.
Millennial? Yeah. He's pretty awesome. And then, of course, Nate Boyer, American hero, Longhorn hero, and a celebrity in his own right now. You and I love that show he did. Yeah. Where what were they doing, on a boat or a raft?
Yeah, they had a contest out, and it was kind of building teams, and they were out basically on an island, and they would have different tasks for the different teams, and they would pair off, and you could keep the money for yourself, or you could share it with the group. And it was a social experiment.
But we never finished it, but it was a good show.
Yeah.
We did. So Longhorn celebrities all around, so many famous faces. And let's talk about how it went down, Megan. It was not, the first half couldn't have been more disaster.
Yeah, look, we talked about this on our previous show. Were we going to get the Quinn Ewers of Michigan that played against the Michigan team and showed up really well, or was this going to be kind of the rusty, knock it off, not quite so sure of himself Quinn Ewers that we saw for a lot of the OU game? Fortunately, I think the answer was more the latter than the former. Texas just struggled from the get-go, from the start. There were a lot of problems. And I will tell you this, like, just overall broad impression, I will say in the game, I felt, man, this is an O-line issue. The O-line was just getting pushed around for most of the game, it felt like. But going back and kind of looking over it again, I had this conversation with some of the people in the stands. You hear some people clamoring for Arch. We'll talk about that in a little bit. Sark's decision to pull Quinn Ewers and put Arch in for a bit. Was that the right decision? Did it make sense? In that moment, I wasn't all about it. I'm still a Quinn Ewers stan. I still believe this is his team. I still think the team is 100% behind him. But, when I looked back on the game, yes, the O-line had problems. No question there. They weren't looking like the O-line that we've seen throughout the season so far. But Quinn Ewers wasn't doing his O-line any favors either. There were a lot of questions about is he going through his progressions too fast? He was really hesitant to step up into the pocket. He had no pocket presence. And that, to me, was the biggest difference between who we saw in Michigan and who we saw a couple days ago at DKR against Georgia. What were your initial impressions, Rocky, when you first saw this? Was this and again, shout out to the defense. Let me say that. Shout out to the defense, because they absolutely did what they needed to do, with the exception of a few downs. Yes, important drives that changed what could have been, but they were towards the end of the game. The defense really stood up. They did what they needed to do. This was an offensive problem, the offense, right, for this game. So what were your impressions when you were in game, and then maybe a little bit post game?
Yeah, so let's talk about that. So in game, you and I were messaging about the O-line, and in the game, it felt like, wow, they're getting beats, right? And then go back and watch. I love to go to people who played all offensive line and see what their thoughts are. Some coaches, Coach Sark, and hearing him in the press conference. And he flat out said, on this play wasn't the O-line. On this play was this. And this play was the running back. On this play was the tight end who missed something. On this play was Quinn, right? So yes, they didn't play their best game, but the offensive struggles were not solely on the offensive line. Georgia had brought the pressure. They had extremely good talent. They matched Texas toe to toe at every position. They executed better. Sark said, about effort and execution, especially at the most critical moments. You cannot win a game at home or anywhere, 2 for 15 on third downs and 1 for 5 on fourth downs, especially when the game was on the line, when they had it within a possession. They, like we said, they didn't quit. They fought back, but it was, they dug such a huge hole early. And like you said, Quinn just didn't look himself. Is it the injury? Is what's going on? And it's going back to basic footwork, basic pocket presence, the things that we've seen him come out strong earlier in the year. And I don't know. We don't know. We can only guess. Is he scared to get hurt? Is he reverting back to something? Is he, sometimes they say if you have a quarterback like Arch, who's played well, really well, had moments, and then, it seems got a little film on him and held him back a little bit. But Arch is the future of Texas football. And there's always, like we talk about, constant controversy of should Arch be the starter, this and that. And when you have that over your shoulder,
public controversy. I want to say that public controversy, not
inside Texas, not right. Exactly, not inside
right.
Texas. Sark is very clear, and the team is very clear that Quinn is the starter.
Right.
But it does Quinn have that just constantly in the back of his head, and is that affecting his game? That he's got it, he's overthinking because the pressure's on that. And then it happened. Quinn got pulled. Sark explained is to give him time to regroup. But within 2 seconds, the national media is blowing up. Quinn pulled, Arch new starter, quarterback controversy. And then after halftime, Quinn comes back, plays much better, but it's too late.
Yeah, I think too, something that I question, right? We knew he had that oblique pain. He was out for a couple of games for that. That's an injury that can be re-aggravated very quickly, very easily. And at this point in the season, nobody's 100% healthy, right? Let's just say that. Game 7, you're a little banged up. You've had some injuries that people are recovering from, but just the way the sport of football goes, nobody's 100% at this point in the game. And when he got pulled, yes, I agree. Sark came out and said he needed to sit down. They talked to Quinn a little bit later and asked him about the benching. He said, well, I guess I needed to be. I think this is still something that's affecting him mentally for sure. But you do kind of wonder, was there a re-aggravation of that injury? Did he get it? Because he got pulled very shortly after taking a really big hit in the backfield. And it looked like he got hit kind of in that same rib area, in the abdomen area. So I wonder if that factored in a little bit, playing not quite 100%, as close as you possibly can be at this point after coming back from an injury, but then also taking a really big hit, and your head just hadn't been in the game. It just felt like it was kind of snowballing at that point. And look, I will put my faith in Sark. I trust him. There's still no question there. The coaches know their players. They know how they're feeling. They know what they're doing. They understand their mentality. And that might have been just a good reset button for Quinn. Yeah, it sucks. Yeah, it sucks to hear all the controversy and all that. But if anything, I do believe we've talked about culture all season. That doesn't change in 20 seconds in a game. No. You know what I mean? That doesn't change with one decision in a game. So I do feel like this was an opportunity for Quinn to go, all right, I'm going to reset. He did. He went into that locker room, came back out, and played lights out in the third quarter, right? There was a lot going on where Texas looked like the Texas that we knew in the third quarter. So you do have to kind of wonder, was that nagging injury, did that play a role into it? Was it, multifaceted piece? But yeah, there's a lot of questions there. And again, I'm going to say this. Georgia's linebacker, Jalen Walker, was a menace. He was an absolute menace. He was all over the field. 8 solo tackles, 3 sacks, 3 tackles for loss, and 1 fumble recovery. He just had an outstanding night. And again, that's where that O-line was struggling a little bit. But I think what really compounded the issues with the O-line was Quinn's hesitation. He wasn't the guy that was making fast decisions. He wasn't seeing the field well. And even when he saw his open receivers, he was still checking down to the safer bet. We saw that on quite a few plays there that I thought was really problematic. I mean, the number of times that this is one thing I do like about my seats where I'm at. Again, I'm in the north end zone, so I see the length of the field pretty well. It's a good kind of bird's eye view of the field. And there were multiple times where Quinn had deep receivers wide open, absolutely wide open. I know that Bolden and Golden were open. Bond was open quite a few times. And for whatever reason, either Quinn wasn't seeing him or he saw them and just didn't trust himself quite as much. I think he kind of got in his own head at that point in the game, but he wasn't making those deeper passes that we've seen him make time and time again. We know this year he's been a better deep ball passer, right? So I don't know, Rocky, like what do you think with that? When you see those missed open receivers, when you see those missed opportunities, again, I'm going to say this was not a play calling issue. In the past, sometimes we've looked at Sark and gone, man, what are you thinking? What are you doing? There were only a couple plays this game that I was like, don't know that I would have done that, not taking the points when we got down towards when the game was still kind of within reach was one of them where I went, well, I don't know how I feel about that. But for the most part, the play calling was there. There were multiple opportunities where Gunnar Helm was open. There were multiple opportunities where Bond was wide open, where we had that deep ball or a wide open receiver, and Quinn and sometimes Arch too just wasn't making that decision, either not seeing him or making the choice not to go to him. What do you think's behind that? What's going on there?
Well, let's see what Quinn had to say when he was asked about it after the game, and then we'll talk about it.
I just think that we didn't start the way that we obviously wanted to, and playing catch up is tough for an offense. But I think we stayed poised and composed throughout the entire game. There was moments that probably people thought that Georgia was going to start pulling away, but I feel like we always just had either scored or our defense got a stop that just kind of kept us in it, which is cool to see. But we definitely did not play our game. But
did you need that for the break to kind of recalibrate yourself? Did you feel that you needed that?
I mean, it seemed like I did. So I came out after second half and put a couple good drives together, but it's definitely a weird position to be in for sure.
You described the direction.
Weird position to be in for sure.
I mean,
it didn't. I don't know what's wrong with Quinn.
Yeah.
What's because something's wrong. Well, something's wrong because we've seen how great he can play. We've seen him go into Alabama and just deal. We've seen him in the Big 12 championship and just deal. And we saw him go into Michigan and deal against, again, even though Michigan is proven to be kind of a fraud this year, they still have elite talent. And he did that at their home in front of the massive crowd. And everyone kept saying, well, he did enough at the OU game, started slow, but cleaned it up and did enough. And we felt like because he ended strong in the OU game that he could take something into this game. And then, wow, it couldn't have gone more flat and been more confusing. And like you said, the play calling felt great. It felt like it felt like the space and time were there with the receivers, the O-line. Yeah, they had more work to do than they've ever had to do before. I just don't know what's going on with Quinn. Something's going on.
Yeah. No, again, I think I'm not in the locker room. I'm not talking to him, but this feels like a mental issue. It feels like maybe a little bit of the yips, maybe a case of the overthinking
what
things.
A terrible time to have that.
No
Going
kidding.
from number one in the Heisman race after
Right.
Michigan and everything on the line. The biggest game in 100, I don't know, 50, 60, 70 years at DKR, a chance to improve his NFL stock, a chance to, what a moment. It could have been a Heisman moment. It wasn't one for Carson Beck either. He did enough to help his team win, but he was not the reason they won that game.
Yeah.
What a moment. And it almost breaks your heart, not just for the loss, but it breaks your heart because this was such a moment for Sark, for the entire team. But, you know, if you're going to tell the Quinn story, this has to be part of it. This moment slipped away.
Yeah, it is. Look, and I think any talk of Heisman can go away at this point. We're not there. He's not there. You know, let's just focus at the task at hand. Let's work on getting better every game. But, you know, when you look at it, the numbers weren't terrible. His completion percentage wasn't fantastic, but he was 25 for 43. So that's a 58.1% completion percentage.
Terrible.
But he threw for 211 yards. Again, you're seeing this in the stats here, though. The yards per attempt, 4.9. So each year we've seen Quinn, his yards per attempt or his average yards has shrunk on his passes. So he's not taking those long balls as much. He's not taking even kind of the mid shots. He's really checking down more and more. And look, I would say, you know, in most games, you don't need to throw every ball as a long ball. That was problematic early on in Quinn's career at Texas. He would always look for the long ball and he'd try to shove things in perhaps where he didn't need to, right? But he improved with that and felt like he found a really good balance. And now it feels like that pendulum has almost swung a little too far. He's checking down more. It's almost like he's not trusting himself with those longer throws, even with the mid-range throws. Again, I want to say the play calling, I think, was great. Sark had schemed up a lot of things where if the reads were made properly in the right timing, we had guys open all over the field. I mean, there were a lot of opportunities for explosive plays, which is what Texas was really lacking in this game. And for whatever reason, Quinn and Arch too, I'm not just going to pin all of this on Quinn. There were opportunities that Arch missed as well. They just weren't seeing the field properly, and they were checking down a little too quick and missing those opportunities for the explosive plays that could have made a difference in this game. So that's a little frustrating. Certainly something that they're going to go back to, you know, the drawing board and look at this again. I think the biggest concern for me right now regarding Quinn is, like you mentioned a little bit earlier, the fundamentals seem to be regressing a bit. It's the problem where, you know, he's not setting his feet. He's not stepping up into the pocket. He has no pocket presence. That, to me, is going to be an issue. If that's something that doesn't get resolved and get resolved quickly, Texas is in for a long ride because, you know, we sit here and we talk about, oh, you know, the narrative was Texas has one of the easiest schedules in the SEC. Well, it turns out that's not really the case. And these next few games, again, Arkansas, sneaky good. Kentucky, sneaky good. You know, even Vanderbilt has shown that they can go in and really F things up against a number one team. So there aren't any, we know the narrative. There aren't any easy games in the SEC. We understand that. So if Texas doesn't get this Quinn Ewers problem figured out quickly, oh, this could go from being a really exciting season to oh God, here we are again. And we're all suffering from that UTSD again.
Yeah. So we talked about, you know, Quinn did have to sit, benched, whatever you want to call it, get a moment, regroup, you know, put his thoughts together, whatever you want to call it. He had to sit the bench and Arch came on. And of course, like we said, right away, national media, not within DKR, but national media started saying Quinn benched, QB controversy. So let's talk about it. We'll show a clip of what the players had to say about who they consider to still be the leader of the team. And then we can talk about, should it be Quinn or Arch? Here we go. I love this share screen. I just got to actually remember to share it.
Yeah, it says a lot because for you to be in that position where you get taken out and then you go back in, it's kind of like some guys will kind of take it as all they don't believe me or something like that. But he kind of just stuck with it. He kind of made sure he kept uplifting us even when he wasn't in the game. So when he got back in the game, he just went out there and he was being Quinn. He was being himself.
No, he responded well. I mean, he got us in the locker room, told us, I mean, we still in the game, told us to trust in him. And I mean, that's what we did. We came out there and executed and then paid attention to the small details, and then the game went on.
You know, he knows that this team goes where he goes, and he's our guy. He's our rock. And we rely on him. And I just told him that after the game, but he already knew it. It was more just words of encouragement to say, hey, man, we're going to keep your head up, keep us going because we go where you go. And I got full trust in Quinn, and he's such an amazing guy. He's got a lot ahead of him.
All right. So thanks, Noah Gross, for posting that for us.
Position where you get taken out and then you go back in and stuff.
It's the team still believe in him. They said, he came back out, played better ball. And what do you think? Is it just national media silliness? I saw somebody post a national media person post a YouTube thing saying, is Quinn quitting on his team? That was the title of their video. Come on.
Yeah, look, we are in a clickbait society. So you're going to get those narratives. I mean, what did we see? What was it on 3 saying they got hacked? Some intern came in.
No, that was 247.
Whoever 247 said, "Oh, Quinn is going to sit out and transfer." So again, we know that Texas is a high-profile school. There's a ton of views. This is clickbait, no matter what. A quarterback controversy always does well for clickbait. So of course that's going to blow up. Now, if we continue, I will say this: right now, still confident there is zero quarterback controversy at the University of Texas. I think the players are 100% behind him. We're hearing them say that. If ever there was a time to stay off of social media, now would be the time for Quinn and for the team.
For many reasons, yeah.
Right, absolutely. But look, I don't think there's a quarterback controversy yet. I will add that caveat yet, because again, yeah, if we do continue to see this kind of play and these kind of decision-making choices from Quinn, it could turn into one. It could turn into one here in a couple of games, but I think
if we go to Vanderbilt and we're down 17-0, because Quinn is doing the same things that have been happening. Right now, they're 17.5-point favorites at Vanderbilt this weekend. Yeah. If we go out and we're down 2 scores, 2 possessions, this time, if Sark does pull Quinn, it's Arch's team. Like I don't know. It's a heartbreaker to even think that we would get there. And this is a huge, if that got to that point,
huge hypothetical.
But pulling him before and giving him a moment, and then Arch coming out and then bringing him back, Quinn did enough. But still, those key 4th down plays, he didn't make the play. And we keep talking about last week against Washington being 1 play away in the playoffs or doing one thing and he could have those plays back. Well, he kind of had these moments back in the biggest game of the year, the most watched game of the year, at number 1, at home, night game, all the things, and didn't execute. So, of course, it's not all on all on Quinn. It's never all on one person.
Sure.
But there were things that he could have done differently that could have changed the game.
Yeah, I don't disagree. Look, what I will push back a little bit on is if there's another bad game at Vanderbilt, does it become Arch's team? I still don't think so, because, and again, the reason I say that is Arch is as excited as I am for him, as much as I know he's the future, as much as I believe in him as the future, he's still not there yet. And I think that this was evidenced as well. Arch has had some meaningful play time this year. Obviously, he started a couple of games. He's been in for hefty cleanup duty before. He's had significant playing time. So I don't want to hear the excuse of he got thrust into this game and he wasn't ready. If Arch has had enough playing time to be ready to play in this game, if whatever happened to Quinn happened, whether he got hurt, whether he got pulled, whatever. And while our brains like to say, oh, he did some amazing things. Yeah, he had some good throws. He did a few good things. Overall, he was still making decisions very similar to Quinn. Now, his mechanics looked a little bit better. He had pocket presence.
More escapability.
Right. He has the ability to scramble, and he's just a big dude, right? So he does have those upsides. But when it came down to it, there were still plenty of plays where he just flat out missed his deep receiver, or he flat out missed his mid field receiver, and he
only got a few plays, so
right.
He didn't get time to get into a rhythm. So
I get it, but if there is such a night and day difference, and that's the argument I would make. Even if Quinn
we were saying that in August and September and in early October. I think getting into November now, seeing the struggles that Quinn has had, I don't know if it's night and day difference anymore. I'm still saying Quinn is absolutely QB1, and if the team's behind him and Sark invests in Quinn still, then that's where we go and that's who we support. But I think it's gotten a little bit, only because Quinn is not playing at full Quinn ability, then
Yeah.
it's not so far apart.
Again, I don't disagree with that. But what I am saying is I'm still not seeing, to your point, there is not such a night and day difference to say that Arch is the obviously better choice, that he's the obviously better guy to go with. At the end of the day, in my mind, the only way that a true quarterback change happens is if there is a glaringly obvious advantage of having Arch in. And I don't think we're quite there yet. I haven't seen enough out of Arch, and I haven't seen too little out of Quinn to say that we're at that point. And it's exactly what you're saying. If this battle had kind of flip-flopped and all of a sudden Arch looks night and day better than Quinn, then yeah, then it becomes, maybe there is a little bit of a controversy, but I just don't think that we're there yet. While I did see while I did see Arch doing some good things in the game, it wasn't so much better. The results were still pretty similar. He was still making similar mistakes, missing some guys, not reading properly, really quick to check down. If that hadn't happened, if all of a sudden he came in and, oh my God, we had this huge spark and Texas scored 20 points under Arch, okay, then yeah, there's a different conversation to be had. But we're not at that point yet. And I don't think Arch's development is there yet. So I
not
agree
in this
with
past game, but I'm saying
right.
If you go into Vanderbilt and Quinn struggles, is not making the right reads, isn't stepping up in the pocket, looks intimidated or
then
scared
Arch may
or
get some more
whatever.
time. Sure.
And then Arch comes in and does well, then there might be a controversy.
That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
That's exactly what I'm saying. But there still has to be enough difference between the two players. If this is they're playing pretty similarly, it's still Quinn's game. If it's
some are in the school of let's just start investing in the future.
I get that. I'm just saying I'm not one of those people.
I'm not. I'm just saying some coaches might be, but Sark
I understand that. Sark is not that guy. Sark is not that guy. This coaching staff is not that. This team isn't that. I truly believe the only way that we see any real controversy or any opportunity or possibility of Arch taking this team over is if the separation between the two becomes so glaringly obvious that only an idiot wouldn't do it. You know what I mean? And I don't think the quarterbacks are at that point right now. So definitely something to keep an eye on. Of course, we don't, we want to watch and see, can Quinn recover? Is he going to play better against Vanderbilt? Vanderbilt is a good reset opportunity. Just at the end of the day, and look, this is not me knocking Vanderbilt. It's just facts be facts, right? Vanderbilt isn't Georgia. So this is an opportunity for Texas to go in to, an away game environment that might not be quite as hostile as some of the other places that we've seen, and has an opportunity to kind of get in their groove again. We saw Quinn come back against a bad OU team, and he didn't look great, but he did enough to win. After the performance that he had against Georgia, after the performance that the O-line had against Georgia, the way that played out, I think Vanderbilt's going to be a really good opportunity for Texas. Again, I wouldn't want to be in those practices this week because I bet they're pretty unpleasant. But Vanderbilt's going to be a good opportunity for Texas to kind of hit the reset button, figure their stuff out against a team that gives them an opportunity to play a little bit, to figure it out, to have a little bit of breathing room. Again, that's not meant to be an insult to Vanderbilt. We're just calling a spade here.
Well, I don't know. They're starting to they look good, and they have probably the best quarterback in the SEC. I don't know anyone. Okay. Yes. I like numbers, third down conversions. I mean, solid wins, a really good resume already. And he is the leader of that team as he goes. It's just like Mookie Taffy said, as Quinn goes, the team goes. Yeah, that's how Vanderbilt is rolling too. But let's make sure we have time to talk about the defense, the defensive performance. Fantastic. Did everything they could with what they were given. Short fields. They produced enough turnovers early for Texas to make a statement in that game. Texas couldn't do it. The offense couldn't do it early. I just want to give, huge props. They're still somehow the number one defense in the country for getting stops. I think they gave up, the 30 points, but they played so well. And just, the team, it has to be complimentary football. And it wasn't complimentary football on Saturday, but that wasn't the defense's fault.
No, the defense, like we said earlier in this program, the defense did what they needed to do. And I will cut them a little bit of slack for the end of the game because they were just gassed, man. And I do want to bring this up too. So I'm glad that you pointed it out. So yes, you're right. Even after this performance against Georgia, Texas is still the #1 defense in the nation with a stop rate. They have a stop rate of 82.1%. Points per drive allowed is 0.76. So look, Texas defense is doing what they need to do. The one thing I do want to point out is that the special teams, girl, we've been talking about this all season long. There's been some concerns about the special teams, and I don't think this is something people are talking about enough at Texas this season. The special teams really hurt Texas in this game. So I just want to point out a few numbers. The yardage gained on Georgia scoring drives against Texas on Saturday night. So these are scoring drives only for Georgia. The touchdown, they only had to go 13 yards. That was a turnover, right? Field goal, 13 yards. Touchdown, 34 yards. Field goal, 25 yards. Field goal, 4 yards. Touchdown, 89 yards. That 89 yards is the only real drive that Georgia had to put together. And that was at, the very end of the game when the defense is gassed at that point. You can't ask your defense to do more. Now, again, I'm putting this on the offense being pretty abysmal, turning things over, not being able to gain any yardage. Texas absolutely lost the field position battle in this game, and it hurt them. It hurt them big time. And so,
A
yeah,
lot of that too was fumbles and the quarterback, 2 turnovers by turnovers on downs, 2 turnovers of the quarterback fumbles. Like all of that is just that poor defense. They kept putting them in the worst spots.
Yeah, absolutely. Again, Ratliff was our punter again. I just have some questions. He's a young guy. I'm not going to throw him under the bus. He's going to develop. He looks like he's going to have a big leg. He did have a long of 52, but keep this in mind. With that long of 52, with 5 punts, he averaged 43.8 yards. So these numbers are not great for Texas. Again, it just felt like
stepping up. He is stepping up to fill in for Michael Kern, who's injured.
He is, absolutely. But again, this is a collective effort from Texas. That field position battle, Texas did not win that. Turnovers were a huge factor in this game. Special teams wasn't really helping out in the way that we had hoped. It felt a little bit like again, with the exception of the defense, because the defense can only do so much, right?
Mm-hmm.
It felt like a pretty big collapse on the offensive side and the special teams side, that they just, like you mentioned earlier, it just was not complimentary football. When Texas is at their best and they're firing on all cylinders, when the offense is clicking and gets those explosive plays and is seeing the field well, and Quinn is leading the team and making smart decisions and has sound mechanics, and then you pair it with a defense like we saw against Georgia, Texas is, in my opinion, the best team in the nation, but they did not execute like the best team in the nation. So you can't call that. You can't say that. And until they are able to execute on a high level consistently every single game against worthy opponents, it's just going to be problematic for Texas.
All right. So props to the defense. Offense, I'm sure they're working all week. Special teams, Jeff Banks, he went from one of the best special teams programs in the last few years to just really struggling for it to be a contributing third team, right? Offense, defense, special teams. We don't know what's happening there.
Yeah.
But let's just touch quickly on so of this big game, there were so many stories that came out of it. And unfortunately, one of the ugliest stories to come out of it was this bottle throwing thing. So it started with, we saw Jahdae Barron had this amazing interception, ran it back, almost got to the touchdown, and the crowd goes crazy. And this is a really key time where Texas needed to pull, within 2 scores and get back in this game. And the referee, the line judge on the side says, "Oh, pass interference." They show it on the screen. It was obviously not pass interference and defensive pass interference in any way. He just made a fantastic play on the ball, completely clear, and took off running.
There was hardly any contact.
There was
hardly any contact.
Yeah. He reaches in front of him and snatches the ball, right?
Right.
So the SEC says the game officials gathered to discuss the play. And so they overturned this penalty. I didn't know it was one that could be overturned. Obviously, we know it's one that can't be challenged. But this was because the entire crowd went crazy. Boo,
Right.
boo, boo, right? But the students, mostly the students, I don't know.
It was students.
I'm saying, but I don't know if it was from anywhere else around the stadium, but all the attention was drawn to the students who acted ridiculous and threw water bottles onto the field. So because of this, Sark had to go out and say, stop, tell the students to, stop doing it. Stop the game. All the cheerleaders, the trainers, all these people were having to come and pick up these bottles, which are dangerous to throw, stupid to throw. It looks bad. It's a bad look. It's not how we behave. Right. Also, it caused the refs to overturn the call.
Well, it gave them the time, right? It gave them the time.
Yeah, but some people are saying like Emmanuel Acho is saying, like he tweeted, Texas fans, y'all did that. They changed that call because of y'all. Texas fans, y'all did that. I don't even know if it's legal, but hook them. Of course, we do not appreciate the fans doing it this way. But like you said, it gave them time to stop and look at it.
Yeah, look, I have a different take on it. Of course, we see a release later the next morning, an official statement from the SEC office. With 3:12 left to play in the third quarter of the Georgia at Texas game, Texas intercepted a pass at the Texas 46-yard line and returned it to the Texas 9-yard line. Texas was flagged for committing defensive pass interference on a play which resulted in Georgia maintaining the ball with a first down. So it was a big play, huge momentum changer. Texas was coming from behind, had a really big third quarter, and again was pushing it. Then the game. So this is where I kind of want to read between the lines here. The game officials gathered to discuss the play, which is permitted to ensure the proper penalty is enforced, at which time the calling official reported that he erred and a foul should not have been called for defensive pass interference. Consequently, Texas was awarded the ball at the Texas 9-yard line. Now,
at the Georgia.
At the Texas 9. Was it Georgia 9-yard line?
Georgia 9-yard line. Because they're defending that in.
Yeah, okay.
So, I have it on the screen.
No, I'm reading a different one that I screenshotted. That's so funny. So that mine says Texas 9-yard line.
They must see, look at the one I'm showing online. They must have
they must have fixed it.
Georgia 9. Oh, that's funny. So anyway, they changed it. They did.
So point is, look, I saw a lot of people, Josh Pate got upset about it, Emmanuel Acho making that comment. A lot of the talking heads were saying because of the booing and because of the aggressive nature of the fans throwing the water bottles on the field, that it was the refs going, oh, you know what? They're pretty pissed. We should change the call. I disagree with that narrative. I don't think the refs didn't get in there and be like, oh, golly gee, they're mad. We want to get out of here alive. Let's change the call. No, first of all, it was an egregiously horrible call. It was a terrible, terrible call. We were booing and they had paused when the call was made before the water bottles were thrown. Then they put it up on the screen, which the officials had the opportunity to see. And it wasn't until after it was shown on the big screen that it was such a horrible call that people started throwing things on the field. Now, again, I hated it. That, in all honesty, that should have resulted in us getting a 15-yard penalty. There's zero question. That should have hurt the team. I was a little surprised that they didn't call the penalty on us. What I thought was going to happen was that they would reverse the call because it was the wrong call and they were reviewing it on their own time, right? But, again, according to the SEC, the field judge is the one that when they huddled to make sure that the call was right, he said, my bad, guys, I got the call wrong. So they were going to overturn it, in my opinion. If you believe the SEC, that was going to happen anyway. What I hate is that this narrative has been turned into, well, no, is because Texas fans were pissed off that they felt pressured to change the call. I don't necessarily agree with that. I think that, again, maybe I'm too optimistic. Maybe I'm giving too much credit to the officials, but they have to meet for that call anyway. And it had been shown on the big screen again. Again, like you said, Rocky, this could not be challenged. Neither one of the coaches, obviously, Kirby Smart wasn't going to challenge it, but Sark, none of ours. That is a non-challengeable official call. But the refs do have the opportunity to regulate themselves and to pick up flags. And that's exactly what happened. It's just unfortunate that, and again, they were already meeting when Texas put it up on the big screen. It wasn't until after it showed again on the big screen that the people started throwing stuff on the field. So I think had nothing been thrown onto the field, I think the flag would have effectively been picked up anyway. It wasn't the Texas
I don't
fans.
know.
I don't know.
I don't know if it would have been picked up. They could have met and decided to do whatever, but the crowd's reaction, yeah, that was overwhelmingly upset with those refs. And as much
Of
as
course
we
it was.
complained about Big 12 refs over the years, I have seen zero improvement with the SEC refs.
I don't know.
They never call holding till they call holding on everything. We've gone from, it just feels like it's still, the refs are still a story after every game. And we've seen them
I think that's just the nature of fans.
We've seen huge games, not just Texas, other teams, where the following week, that they say they made huge mistakes.
I don't know. I think that's just the nature of the game. I think people are going to bitch about
I don't see any improvement in these refs.
I do. I think the refs have been, I think the refs have been much improved. I do, in my opinion, I think that the SEC refs have at least, yes, they've been calling some ticky-tacky stuff, or, they've let them play, but they've done that fairly across for both teams. The thing that I felt in the Big 12 was that Texas was not getting calls that they should have. Other teams, nobody called a holding penalty against the teams that Texas was playing, and Texas would get those calls constantly. At least in this game, while I don't agree with every call, I certainly don't agree with every call. I'm never going to agree with every call. But at least in the SEC so far, in my opinion, the refs have at least been calling an even game across the field. They missed some holding against Texas.
I disagree. I feel like, because we've seen videos, our players are being dragged down by their face masks.
They missed some face masks. They missed some holding.
They missed a lot.
But I think that goes both ways, and more than it had before.
Dangerously bad, the things they miss. I think I've seen enough dangerous calls they miss. And then they throw imaginary flags for not pass interference, and only because the stadium panics. Yes, if they got together, great. Whether or not they were going to overturn it anyway, I don't know. But
again, the Texas didn't start throwing the bottles,
but they did not deserve water bottles being
thrown. I agree. So in my opinion, I think what would have happened was, again, if the guy was saying, look, I effed up, I think they would have picked up the flag anyway. What I think should have happened in that sense, and I think this is where the refs messed up, and this isn't good for Texas, but I think what should have happened was that they should have picked up the flag, but they should have also given Texas a 15-yard penalty, because that you can't throw crap on the field. That's a delay of game. It's unsportsmanlike, right? You can't do that. What I will give a quick shout out for, whether you believe that it was the aggression that made them change their mind, or they were going to do it anyway, what I do want to give a quick shout out to is to the cheer staff specifically, because I was in that north end zone. I was watching them, and the second that those water bottles started coming out, the cheer staff was out there like it was the cheerleaders picking up the bottles first, and then the training staff started coming over from our sideline too. But the cheer staff was down in that corner where the band was, and they were Cheer and Palm were coming out and picking up the bottles quickly. And I honestly believe, with the quickness that they acted, that's the only reason that there wasn't a 15-yard penalty, because it didn't delay the game further. So I will say this, you can have your opinions about it. It could have been handled differently. Texas fans, for the love of God, don't throw crap on the field. It's a terrible look. We are a better fan base than that. And what kills me about it is that these crazy narratives that are out there of people loving to hate Texas, we just gave them more fodder. We're going to hear about this over and over.
So Matthew McConaughey, he even put out a statement, being Minister of Culture and all, electric Saturday night, but let's get real about the bottle bombing on the field glitch we had. Not cool. Bogey move. Yeah, that call was BS, but we're better than that. Longhorn Nation knows how to show out like no other, and still keep our class. So yeah, he's talking about we got to be better than that. But also let's talk about the other fans. Like we've had a lot of holier than thou, because Texas looked awful doing that. No mistake, Texas looked terrible. Right. But are we the only school in the SEC to do this? Georgia.
Yeah.
Georgia fans threw multiple bottles on the field and dumped full beers on photographers in the end zone.
Texas fans didn't do that. First of all, don't waste
No,
beer.
not that we want to be whataboutism, but let's not pretend that we're Texas, you're the worst. Tennessee fined for throwing things on the field.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember? I think it was last season where the mustard packets and the mustard bottles became a thing at Tennessee because they were throwing them on the field for so long. Look, the other thing too is, and again, I agree. I'm standing on this. Don't throw crap on the field.
Right.
But you're absolutely right. I don't want to hear it from certain fan bases about how they act and what they do. Kirby Smart coming in and saying, this is dangerous to the players. They shouldn't do that. Yeah, there you go. They're saying Kirby Smart saying this is dangerous to the player. My brother, last week you were in trouble for pushing a player on the sideline, an opposing player on the sideline, for shoving him. If you're really concerned about player safety, maybe don't do that. Right. So I agree. It was a bad look all the way around. It is sparked a lot of embarrassing debate. It has sparked a lot of ridiculous comments and some deserved, looks within and some deserved pushback against Texas. But let's call it a learning moment. Let's move on. Let's be better than that.
Yeah, Kirby Smart saying water bottles being thrown is dangerous when his players constantly drive 100+ miles an hour while intoxicated is incredibly rich. That was from Reed Carringer.
Yeah, look. Yeah, agreed. So again, there's a lot of hypocrisy here. There's a lot of ridiculousness here, but let's just agree. Let's not do that shit again. Let's move forward.
Please. That was terrible. And now Texas has to pay $250,000 fine. And the thing that bothered me, that's a lot of money, but for Texas, it's not. It is a lot of money. But the thing that caught my ear was, and possibly revoking your alcohol license, your alcohol permissions. I think Texas would leave the SEC before they had to give up their alcohol sales.
Texas would pay the fines to leave the SEC early and go independent before they
would make more from the alcohol sales. Yeah.
Look, no question. Texas makes millions of dollars from alcohol sales in the 6 to 7 home games that they have just for football. There's absolutely no way. I think I texted you in this game, like when that came up, it was possible that SEC reserved the right to suspend alcohol sales. I was like, CDC will never let that happen. Best of luck with that one.
That ain't happening.
And again,
so that was a bad look. Texas, we're moving on from that bad look. Texas football is moving on from that loss to Georgia. It seems like the players and the team have a lot of positivity, getting regrouped. One of the things I really loved, like looking forward and getting ready for Vanderbilt, they talked about that Sark told them, like, it's not whether or not you get knocked down in the 6th round. It's the 12th round, the knockout that you don't want. Like, you'd rather get I'll let Taft say it. He says it better than me.
What I'll say about that, good question. What I'll say about that is champions never have a clean face. Muhammad Ali never walked out of a fight looking all pretty faced. He always had a bump or a bruise on his face. He always had a bloody nose or a black eye. But everybody knows Muhammad Ali was one of the best fighters to ever walk on this planet. And so to be a champion, you're going to get knocked in the mouth a couple of times. How are you going to respond? How are you going to stand up? Coach Sark said it this morning, I would rather get knocked out round 6 and get up and win in round 12 than get knocked out in round 12. So that's all I'll say to that question.
All right. So it's better to get knocked down in 6 and get back up, because we're in round 6. We just finished round 6. They got knocked down. Then be in round 12 and get knocked out. And we know this year round 12 is at A&M with possible SEC championship spots on the line, with playoff positioning on the line, possible bye weeks on the line. Like, all these things are going to be on the line at A&M. They're right now, because they played the most games, they're seated number 1 right now because they've won them. And they go to LSU. A lot's going to be on the line on our 12th round. Whew, I love this. I love this mindset. I love the mindset of it ain't over till it's over. Champions have bruises on their face, but it's how you respond, right? We saw Texas football released a video today of Sark out there coaching the team, which they hadn't done before. Put a video of him out coaching with a lot of positivity, which was great. He said every game's a championship game now because they can't afford another loss. You can't afford another loss and hope you get into the SEC championship game.
Right. Well, and we talked about this prior, right? This was a bigger must-win game for Georgia than it was for Texas because Georgia
Yes.
already has that one conference loss, right? So it sucks. We would have been better off had we won, of course, but Texas is still firmly in control of their own destiny. The games coming up are all winnable games. We know that Texas can play at a high level when everything is clicking and when we're playing complementary football. It's just a matter of that execution. They were prepared. They had the game plan. They had the play calls. It's just the execution over everything else. So certainly a lot to look forward to. The season is by no means over. Texas is still controls their own destiny. So that's still a good thing for sure. So we know, just real quickly, I did want to point out a few, just give some kudos to some players that are on watch lists. Jake
Okay.
Majors. Yeah, Jake Majors is a semifinalist for the Jason Witten Colgate Man of the Year award, which is awesome. We know Majors has been doing quite a bit,
Mm-hmm.
both on and off the field, which is really great. Anthony Hill Jr., it was just announced, has been added to the Bednarik Award watch list. And one more, there are Jade Barron and Andrew Makuba have been named quarterfinalists for the Lot Impact Trophy. So still a lot of incredible talent out there, still a lot of obviously Texas is not hurting. We're doing well still. I did want to also talk about Makuba. Now we saw that he left the game with that injury. It would appear to be
Yeah.
on his left knee. Right so far, again, we're recording this on a Tuesday night. So far, Makuba has been listed as questionable for Vandy. So that is something to keep an eye on because Texas is starting to get a little thin out there. That's something that certainly could impact the defense. Makuba's been playing,
Huge.
yeah, but beyond his years, he's been playing really well. So hopefully he heals up quick and is ready to go for that trip up to Nashville.
Well,
So
so that because Derek Williams, we know, is out for the season with the knee injury, and that leaves Michael Taff, and that leaves the youngins like Jordan Johnson Rebel as backup, or the two of them with Taff and Johnson Rebel out there. If Makuba can't go, and Sark talked about, well, this is kind of like if they can rest him this week and he has the bye week next week, then that would give them kind of 2 weeks before they have to come back for, a big match at home. But you can't take Vanderbilt lightly, and you can't take this quarterback lightly. So, right. They have to balance what's best for his injury and if he's able to play or not, and give the youngins a run because that's where we're at now. Fortunately, They have the experienced leadership of Michael Taff.
Absolutely. All right, so let's look forward to Vandy again. We'll wrap up here pretty soon, but let's look forward to Vandy again. That game is 3:15 on the SEC. So Rocky, we're making that trip up there. What are you most excited about for Vanderbilt?
Line dancing on Friday night because we're all going line dancing. So you're driving up Thursday. I'm flying up Thursday afternoon. So we'll get there about the same time. Check into the Airbnb, relax. We're going to have some fun dinner plans, hopefully. And then Friday, we're going to stream our show from Nashville. And then we're going to go line dancing Friday night with a bunch of Longhorn friends, which will be really fun. And then Saturday, we're going to go explore the campus and find a fun place to have a good lunch before the game, watch the other games because there's some good football every Saturday. Absolutely. And that should be a good time.
It will be a good time. All right. I love it. So again, we appreciate y'all being here. There is, again, don't forget to like and subscribe. Like Rocky mentioned, we will be going live a little bit different from our normal time. Typically we are 3 to 5 p.m. Central on Thursdays, but we're pushing that to Friday. We will release we'll announce the time on our Twitter account, which again is Fire the Cannon 1. On YouTube, we are Fire the Cannon Podcast. Please be sure to like and subscribe. So let's wrap it up. We got a few things. We want to look at a recap a few things in college football.
We'll
talk about it a little bit, how it affected the scene, and maybe look forward. And then again, we will give that Vanderbilt preview on our live show on this Friday.
All right. So let's just say quickly, exciting games that happened. Oklahoma State at 13 BYU. I thought BYU, they were favored by 8 or 9. I thought they would win and cover, no problem. No, that game went to the wire. BYU survives by field goal at home. Another exciting game that we were watching while we were getting ready for the Texas game to head to the tailgating was Miami-Louisville.
Yeah.
That was also a back and forth exciting game. Lots of lead changes. Miami survives on the road, 52-45. We said Miami doesn't have defense. They don't have a defense, but Louisville is strong at home. Another
That's one
for Alabama. Oh, go ahead.
Yeah, no, the Miami game, that I had Louisville as the upset. So
it was almost
there.
Upset.
They're almost there.
Tennessee, after going on the road and losing to they lost somebody bad. Who was that? Arkansas, right? Then they come home and they beat Bama. So this, the SEC narrative that everybody beats each other up. Yeah, they do. Yeah, so does the Big 12. But when we do it, we're terrible. When they do it, it's because they're so tough. Right. So, but Bama, that's 2 losses for Bama now after losing to Vanderbilt, coming home and beating Georgia, and then losing at Tennessee. Oh, man. They can't afford another loss for sure. They can still be in the playoff, not the SEC championship game. Right. All right, Oregon still rolling. Indiana still rolling. A&M still rolling. Army and Navy both still rolling.
Can we talk about that A&M game real quick? Again, sure. I don't want to hear the narrative. Everybody, when Texas played Mississippi State, and Mississippi State put a few points on the board, the narrative was, oh, see, Texas played the worst team in the SEC.
13, yeah.
Yeah, they gave up 13. Mississippi State scored more on A&M than they did Texas. I'm just
24.
Saying.
But they were at home, Megan. They're going to get an extra. They're going to get an extra 11 points for being at home. Normally it's a field goal, but we'll give them 11 points.
Of course.
All right, more frauds. We have more frauds to share. Michigan, you're a fraud. You lost again. This time to number Illinois. 22 Illinois. They lost on the road. Another fraud. OU exposed. They're a mess. Fired their offensive coordinator. South Carolina went into Norman and beat them 35-9. It wasn't even as close as that score. It was pretty solid loss. So now OU. I actually, when the announcement was made was it Sunday that the offensive coordinator Seth Littrell was fired, on my Twitter messages, you can see that people are live streaming, the little purple bar at the top. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to go listen anonymously to what the Sooners are saying. They're down bad. And they were so level-headed and cool and collected and had really smart things. They were talking about football in a very smart way. I'll give them that absolutely. Until one guy got on and said, maybe we'll go to the FCS and find a really strong coordinator and go hire the best. And don't be scared to hire from the FCS, he said. And I'm like, if you can't go still, who are the hottest offenses right now? Army and Navy right now, Miami, Indiana. If you can't go hire those 50-point a game, offensive coordinators right now, aren't you OU? Can't you go still a big time offensive coordinator right now from the FBS, from the Power 4?
Well, speaking of that, that's funny that you bring that up, because just a little bit ago, it came out that former Oklahoma coach Barry Switzer questions if the Sooners NIL can compete with Texas. So I think, and what his direct quote was, they can raise more money than we can. We're a small state. We've only got 3.5 million people, and it's going to be more difficult than it is for the University of Texas, where they got 35 million people.
It's not about how many. Okay, it's half of them.
I know.
A&M. So
let me finish it up. A wealthier state and people to be able to support the programs. We'll have to wait and see. So he was talking specifically about NIL, but what he was bringing up is that Oklahoma doesn't have the donor support necessarily in general that Texas does. And I don't think he's wrong there. I mean, at the end of the day,
you don't compare state sizes, because the state of Texas is divided between 100 universities or however many universities and 4, 5, or 6 major universities. You don't just say, oh, well, all 35 million people all give all their money to only Texas. That's
I understand that, but it's still saying there's a larger alumni base. There's a larger alumni base at Texas. There's a more wealthy alumni base at Texas. And to say otherwise would be silly. And I think that was the point that he was making, is that NIL is going to be a problem that OU can't compete with, because they don't have the number of donors or the wealthy level of donors to be able to keep up with Texas, which I think we're going to start seeing come into yes, NIL certainly, like he was talking about, but I think this is also something, just like we're talking about right now. Does OU have the money? It was just a few years ago, 5-6 years ago, that they were on the verge of being bankrupt, of being broke. They were $1 billion in debt or something like that.
They still have huge debts, right?
They still have massive debts, right? So yeah, I mean, there is some question. Can OU fired Seth Luttrell, which I don't think anybody was going to give pushback on that. I think that's what needs to happen. But when you're asking the question, can OU go in and snatch these high profile, successful offensive coordinators? I don't know. I don't know that they're in a position to be able to throw money around like Texas can or like Oregon can at this point right now. I don't know that OU is in that position. So going to be really interesting to see what happens up in Norman over this the remainder of this season.
Yeah, some of the people on the call I was listening to, the chat, were saying that Luttrell is taking all the fall for an offensive scheme that is also partly run by the offensive line coach. Yeah. And, that he's taken the fall for the entire offensive scheme. Look. And for Venables' mishandling of the quarterback situation.
Yeah, so, no question. Texas is very familiar with the blame game and the scapegoating. Been there, done that.
Someone's got to fall.
I'm just appreciating watching somebody else do it, especially when it's our heated rival.
Oh, I'm sorry, Megan. All right, you want another fraud?
Yep, bring it.
Texas State.
Your Texas State Bobcats
lost to Arizona State. They look a mess, and they lost to Old Dominion. They went from thinking they could be a possible playoff team to losing to Old Dominion by 10. Yeah. Anyway,
that's tough.
Yeah, that's terrible. Teams to watch that we want to keep an eye on over the next couple weeks, just because it's interesting. Kentucky and Florida. Florida put a beat down on them. Florida is getting something going here. They're fighting for their coach. They're 4-3. Winning program. Kentucky still doing enough to stay 3-4, but Florida, keep an eye. Also, UCF at number 9, Iowa State. Iowa State is now, they've probably risen since they're 7-0. I have a question for you, Megan. Last time Iowa State was on a rise, Matt Campbell had big time offers to go coach NFL, and he stayed with Iowa State. He could have been an NFL coach all this time. Iowa State was a mess for the last couple of years, but they're back and they're strong. Should he ride this time and get out of there while he can?
Look, I think he's done great things. He's done enough to secure his legacy at Iowa State. And I think it would be foolish of him not to answer the call when it comes this time. The first time around, I can appreciate that he felt he had more to prove. He felt he wanted to stick with his guys. But at this point, how much more are you going to do at Iowa State? And again, I like Iowa State. I have no problem with Ames. I like the school, but at the end of the day, if the NFL comes calling again, if a larger program comes calling again, even within college football, I think you've got to answer that. I think you've got to take that, and you've done what you can. You can't look back at Campbell's time and say, oh, he should have done more, could have done more. He's done so much with the program that was in the dumps when he took over and really brought it up. And I think to the point is we saw him get really high, and then there was a little bit of, come down from that. But it's Iowa State. You're going to see some of those ebbs and flows. And the fact that he built it back up again to get where they're at now, for me, that would be tough to say no, because how many more opportunities are you going to get to really? So unless he sees himself as a lifer at Iowa State, I don't know that you get many more opportunities. So you gotta strike when the iron's hot, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree. I agree completely with how you put it. He's done his time. He was loyal. It's time to go. I don't blame him. I don't blame him if he took the opportunity to move on to something bigger. I don't blame him. Right. All right. One last thing to watch in college football this past weekend. Malik Murphy, Longhorn, who is now at Duke. We know FSU is down bad. We know they are down bad. However, and they made this a game for a minute, but Duke 23, FSU 16. This was last Friday night. This was the first time ever that Duke has beaten Florida State.
Yeah,
Duke
it's a
is
big
now
deal.
6-1, I think 5-1, 6-1.
Yeah. And,
Amazing.
and and the crazy thing about this too is that they didn't have to do much to beat Florida State. So hell yeah, ride with Malik Murphy. We were all Longhorn Nation was all rooting for him. But looking at the numbers here, you kind of just to emphasize how down FSU is. Uh, Duke only had 70 passing yards total in the game and only had 110 total rushing yards. It's not like they had this crazy offense that was going nuts. Putting that over to Florida State, Florida State had 291 total yards to Duke's 180. So Florida State just falling apart at the seams. They're really just a hot mess. And all I'm going to say to that is karma is a bitch, isn't she?
It's unfortunate their superstar, amazing phenom quarterback had that horrible injury. Nobody wants that. Nobody wants that. I think the problem is the way they behaved after, and then the way they treated other programs coming into the ACC after all the things they did. And then just to come out and lay an egg from the first game of the season on. Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
All right. So anything else? College football, we'll make our predictions for the next coming week on Friday when we meet. We'll look ahead at what fun games there are. But let's just share a couple of fun sports stories before we wrap up. One I have to share. So last Sunday night, 2 Sundays ago, when Baltimore beat the Washington Commanders, they had one asshole fan who was
There's always one.
Yeah, I'm gonna show you. He was going around and violently assaulting innocent people on the street. And here he is just shouting things. He's walking up and he's a huge dude, just randomly fighting people.
Yeah, he was looking for trouble. Like that was the whole thing.
Yes, and he was looking to fight people. Well, let's look at an update, Megan, of what happened to this loser.
A few moments later, can we put the SpongeBob? A few moments later,
arrested. Here he is, being arrested. Good. Of course, his face is all over. You can narrow it down to a big, tall Baltimore Ravens fan, and they found him. Arrested.
Hope he got that clout he was trying to chase. Good luck.
Good. Yes. What an awful, awful person.
What I would argue too, did you hear if the person who was filming him got any charges against him?
I didn't look any further into it, but that's a good question.
Because in my opinion, he should have. Because you're an accessory at that point. This man was literally saying he was looking for somebody to F up. He was going out just picking on people to mess up. And then his buddy was recording it the whole time, saying, "Oh,
just as guilty.
He doesn't lose." So yeah, man, I think that maybe not just as guilty, but he's certainly an accessory, and I hope that he got charged as well.
Be charged with something as well.
Yeah.
Dodgers, Yankees, World Series. Megan, thoughts, cares?
Look, I was going for my gritty Tigers. Dodgers, Yankees. It's historic. The nostalgia factor is there. Could not care less. These are two teams that I do not care about. I'll watch it just because it's the World Series, but I am not going to be invested in it. That's all I'm going to say about that.
Yeah, me either. All right, one last fun thing I wanted to share with you. I thought this was pretty funny. LeBron James and his son did a commercial I think it's for Nike, and because he's a rookie now with the team, Bronny, and they did this funny commercial. It's LeBron pouring cereal into Bronny's car.
So is this a commercial or just?
Yeah, it's a commercial. And he opens his car and all the cereal. He filled his car with cereal.
Hey, look at my driver. It's a mess. Yo, you're too old for this.
Never too old for pranks. Come on.
Yeah, especially on your son who's now in the NBA with him. Yeah, that was pretty funny. I thought that was pretty cute. Just having some good fun. We need a little positivity to end the show. That was pretty funny. That's a good old fashioned prank, but also that's a lot of cereal.
It is. I had a boss back in the day when I worked at the mall. I worked at the Buckle. And I had a boss that we got into prank wars back and forth with each other, and he got me really good one day. He something similar to that. He actually took a bunch of balloons. He moved my car, so he got my keys out of my locker when I didn't know it. Moved my car to the other side of the mall, loaded my car up with filled balloons, and then put shoe polish on, on my windshield. So he parked it. So not only did I get out to the parking lot and like, oh my God, where's my car? By the time he took me over to it, I was like, well, now what am I going to do? Because it was
Oh
just, you
no.
open it up, balloons fell out. Oh, it was a mess, but it was a good prank. I appreciated it. I ended up
That's
saran
funny.
wrapping his car in the Texas heat because it shrink wrapped the car after that. So
Oh no.
I love stuff like that. But
Yeah.
all right.
All right. Yeah, that's fine. As long as you're going to help me clean it up so I can get
Oh,
on
he
with my
did.
life.
He did. He was super cool. So
All right,
again, I'm
Megan.
sorry. My allergies are just killing me right now.
I know. Thanks for being such a trooper and sucking it up and getting it done.
Sure.
You're amazing.
No
Yeah, that was
problem.
great. So we're looking forward, moving on. One loss is not the end of the world. It's just a
Yeah.
6th round knockdown. It is not a knockout. They are still in it. We'll be there we'll be there all weekend, Thursday to Sunday in Nashville. So we'll post things about where we'll be hanging out if people want to come join and have fun. I know people are looking for places to be, so it's going to be a good time, and the weather's going to be gorgeous.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So we will be there. Again, we'll look forward. Please keep in mind, like Rocky just said, we are going to recap not on our normal time from 3 to 5 on Thursday, but we will be on Friday. So keep an eye out on Twitter at Fire the Cannon and the number 1. We'll post updates there. When you want to find us, again, one last time, be sure to like and subscribe. We are Fire the Cannon podcast on YouTube. As always, we appreciate y'all listening. We appreciate y'all being here. As always, I'm Megan.
I'm Rocky.
And we are Fire the Cannon.